This is Shane Dyer for Boxing Social in association with Betfred, and I am very happy to be joined by Umar Sadiq. How are you, Umar?
Sunny LA.
I'm going to say that you're in a very good mood.
I am in a very good mood. Life is good.
Good man, good man. Right, let's go back to September. You took on Fedor Chudinov at very short notice, and you gave an incredibly gutsy performance. Unfortunately, losing in the final round of that fight. Just tell me that now that you've had plenty of time to reflect on that fight, how did you rate your own performance?
It's the first time anyone's asked me that in that way, but I would say it was possibly like a 6 out of 10. But then taking into account all the things that were going on during the fight and just before the fight, then I would say maybe perhaps it was like a 7.5. So it wasn't my greatest of performances, but it was still a good one. It's still a good one. I recognise that.
Yeah, and as far as I remember, you were scheduled to take on Lerone Richards, and then all of a sudden it was announced that you were going to be taking on Fedor Chudinov in his own backyard. Just what happened?
It wasn't like that actually. So with Lerone, I was meant to fight him, but there was no date because every time a date was proposed, he had an excuse for it. And then he was making things up like he had a baby coming or whatever. I mean, Errol Spence had a car accident, has been out since. Is now fighting Danny Garcia. Just had a baby and still going ahead with it. So, and at the time I said, real fighters just take fights with or without a baby or whatever. But anyway, long story to deviate from that or circle back. Yeah, there wasn't a date. So I was just ticking over in the gym. And I didn't actually say this at the time, but I was on holiday when I first got called for the fight with Chudinov. I was genuinely in Spain on holiday. So I had to come back, respect, social distance and whatever. And then the fight wasn't confirmed till a week before anyway. But I still think because I live healthy, I mean, I've been traveling for about a month and a half now, Mexico, and then now I'm in LA. And I'm still in good shape. I'm still out in the gyms doing my thing. It's just a lifestyle for me. So I was able to take that. But yeah, I just wanted to clarify that I wasn't getting ready for a fight because I wasn't a date. I was just genuinely living the life.
And I guess in hindsight, like from the reception and the reaction from your performance against Chudinov, it probably worked out better for yourself taking that fight. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, it was better. I just wish I won. Because I know a lot of people give me props for taking on short notice and putting in such a good performance of what have you, under the circumstances, but even the whole thing of, you went 12 rounds. For me, I'm just like, I'm not trying to be a nearly man. You went 12 rounds, that's nearly. Like, for me, that cuts deep, So I had some time out. And the thing that saves me the most with all of this is I'm able to look back at the fight and think there wasn't much more I could have done besides box smarter. There were certain things I could have done in there to box smarter. But effort-wise, there was nothing left in me. I gave everything that I had on a week's notice, So that's a consolation.
What would you say you learnt the most from that fight with Chudinov? It was, it was a big step up for yourself, taking on a former world champion. And they always say that you learn a lot more from a loss than a victory. So what would you say you learnt the most from that fight?
That there are levels in boxing for a reason. So there were so many things that I was doing in there that typically have a certain effect on the opponents. And with him, they were having effects, but not enough for me to then move on to the next phase of what I was trying to do. And then there were certain other things about the way he set things up and his timing and stuff that were really good as well. So there were nuances that I was picking up in there that made me realize that, there are levels to this for a reason. And actually, one of the biggest things I picked up on there's a reason why a lot of fighters walk around very heavy. So, you know, the fact I was able to make the championship weight in a week's notice tells you I usually, you know, stick around the weight. But when I was in the ring, there were certain things that would happen. I was like, okay, you know, I'm processing, downloaded. So yeah, you know, there were definitely a lot of things that I learned without giving too much away that mean that, you know, boxing fans have got a lot to be excited for when I do come back in the ring.
And where do you see yourself like for your next opponent? Because like we said, you showed that you can hold your own at that level. So is it about sticking at that level now, or do you still have like the British title in your plans?
I mean, I'm easygoing. So I was effectively looking after myself from a managerial perspective from summer last year up until this fight. So I was making decisions on my own. And what that meant was, as a fighter, I was willing to fight everybody. You know, so I think last year, there was a time when I'd only had 5 fights and I signed to fight Luke Blackledge. Then I was asking for Tommy Langford. Blackledge was, you know, done, and then he pulled out a few days before the fight. Langford said he was retired, but then he fought Lerone. There are a few other fights I agreed to. Willie Hutchinson I agreed to last year as well, and then he pulled out too, but then comes out and calls my name. Cody Davis, at a time a lot of people thought I was mad. And then obviously Fedor Chudinov, Lerone Richards, then Fedor Chudinov. So as a fighter, for me, I'm happy to fight any and everybody, anytime. Like, on a week's notice, world level in Russia, let's do it. That's my mindset. But since I now, you know, have advisors and people looking after me, so there are things that I would preferably want to do. And my preference is I'm going to stay at world level and get a big fight next. But, you know, I've got people on board to look after me for a reason. So I'm going to have to listen to what they say as well. I'm not sure exactly what their plans are until I get back from LA, which will be in a couple of weeks. And then, you know, we'll sit down, put our heads together, and we'll figure out what's next.
So have you not got no specific time frame in mind for when you want to get out next?
What it is, you know, I've not said much because I've just been taking time out. Because for 21 months leading up to the Chudinov fight, even with the lockdown, I wasn't out of the gym. So I would have a fight and I'd go away for a week, and I'll come back and I'll be back in the gym. You know, so I was a bit burnt out mentally, physically anyway. So that's part of why I'm taking this long break. But for the most part, the British Boxing Board suspended me after the Chudinov fight because I had a brain scan after that had abnormalities. And they've taken so long to then tell me that I can now have another brain scan. Because the process is I've got to have another brain scan for them to check to see that I'm all clear to box again. But they just took so long to get through the process. And by the time, it was only about a week ago actually when they said, yeah, you can take it now. But then they require me to have the brain scan done in England. So I'm partially coming back early because of that. Because I'll preferably do it here in LA and send the results to them, but they don't want that. So I'm going to come home in about a week and a half or so, and then, or back to London, shall I say, and then I'm going to do the scan, send it back to them. Hopefully everything comes up fine. I believe it should be, because I was fine from the get-go anyway. It wasn't, you know, the reports about me coughing up blood and getting rushed to hospital. I asked my team to go to the hospital, and we took ourselves to the hospital. So it wasn't that there was this big emergency that required immediate, you know, medical attention, of which I didn't have much in hospital anyway. So all of that is to say, I need to come back from a brain scan, have the board sign me off and say, okay, cool, you're good to go. And then we can get things moving, because at the minute, it's hard to speak, you know, with Frank Warren Promotions or with any other promoter trying to find a fight when the response would be, well, do you have a license? You know? So it is what it is. I'm out in LA, living life. I may or may not be on a wacky backy. You know, it's legal out here. I forgot about it. I had a store and everything. Yeah, like jars of weed. I was like, what? But anyway.
I just want to...
Full disclaimer, I don't smoke at all.
I'm very sure everyone will believe that, Umar.
No, for real, I don't. But yeah.
Just want to finish with you, Umar, on a couple of big fights in the super middleweight division. One that happened last night. Billy Joe Saunders defeated Martin Murray quite comfortably on points. Did you see the fight at all?
Yeah, so it's a bit weird for me here because LA is 8 hours behind London. So I'm so behind on things, it's ridiculous. I was in the gym training and I finished training and someone messaged me and said, "Are you watching this?" And I was like, "Watching what?" And they're like, "The boxing." I was like, "Yeah, shit," because I keep forgetting it's daytime for me, the boxing. And this is only like 11:30 p.m. or 12 a.m. Sorry, or 12 p.m. So I got home and I just about managed to catch the Billy Joe Saunders fight. So I watched the second half of it. And I think Martin Murray's been inactive as well. So we'll take that into account. But Billy Joe Saunders, for someone who's been inactive for so long and hasn't, maintained in the best of shape, I thought he put in a very good performance. He was very educated, very clever. Again, there's so many nuances in the things that he does that make him so brilliant. To the naked eye, or to the untrained eye, sorry, they're hard to recognize. But then when you're looking at certain things, like his distance control, shot selection, timing, when he decides to engage, so many things. It was really good. And I really hope Bill stays in the gym after this fight because that was a very good tune-up, in my opinion, for him. And should he stay in the gym in his next fight, it will be a problem for anybody in the world. Not that he isn't already, but he'll be even more so.
It's already been called upon Bill that he's got to fight his mandatory next. But in an ideal world, would you say the winner of Canelo and Callum-Smith would be ideal for Billy Joe next?
Oh yeah, 100%. Those you just picked up the two biggest names that he should be fighting. And then outside of those names, then the other two would be Golovkin and Caleb Plant. I don't know if Golovkin's fighting at super middle now, but it'll be him and Caleb Plant will be the next two. And Ramirez, actually. But the two biggest names for Bill right now will be Canelo and Smith.
And just to finish on that, Canelo versus Callum-Smith, it's fast coming upon us. Who have you got for that fight?
I fancy, so it's going to sound like I'm sitting on the fence here, disclaimer, but I fancy Canelo to have the better game plan, better execution, and a higher chance of winning on points or knockout. That being said, Callum Smith's power and counter-punching, or combination of his power and counter-punching, aren't to be ignored. They're very respectable. So I would say I could see Callum Smith knocking out Canelo, and some people say I'm crazy for that, but the power is real when you see it. But especially going by the last fights, then I would say Canelo should. I would lean towards Canelo, but I won't be surprised if Smith knocks him out.
And we will leave things there for now, Umar. But I hope you enjoy the rest of your stay in LA. Staying away from that free weed. But
I'm legit not smoking.
But when you're back in the country and you're getting closer to a fight date, we will catch up then.
All right, cool. Nice one. Thanks for the shout. Appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you for talking to Boxing Social, mate.
Welcome. And thanks to everyone watching too.